Folks, welcome back to Flat Iron Tuning. We're here in the shop. Pikes Peak car's on the lift. Want to kind of go over, basically give you a situation report of the car and the journey to Pikes Peak 2025. As we are recording this is the last day of February, February 28th. And so we basically have right now 109 days until Pikes Peak. Say 109 days because tech inspection, which is what starts off the whole race week, is June 16th. So we've got about 109 days. We're actually supposed to be testing on Pikes Peak early in June, so it's really more like 99 days, but who's counting? So I'm going to go over the status of the car, and I want to kind of give you our laundry list of all of the things that we have to do to the car to kind of get you prepped for what we're working through, and then we're going to kind of bring you updates every week with the progress that we're making. So first and foremost, the most obvious thing, and the thing we talked about already, there's no engine in the car. There's just a big hole here. And believe it or not, this is kind of, in some ways, the least of our problems. And we'll get to why here in a second. But so we've got a new long block, and we have actually a completely new turbo kit that is coming in. But the thing is that, so we have to get the engine in and the turbo kit in, and we're going to have to redo our intercooler piping because we're now doing a rotated turbo kit. Yes, we are finally going to a rotated turbo kit. I'll show you that in a second, but the intercooler piping is going to have to be different, so that's going to have to be fabricated. But, Carter, come on over here. Here's the next interesting piece of the puzzle. So, here in the back, you've seen it before, this is our dry sump tank. That's the tank that holds all of the oil for the dry sump oiling system. For this year, we've been told we have to put this behind a firewall, and you can see that we started mocking that up here. But the problem is it's not that easy because we've got the tank suspended on the roll cage, and we have to build a shield around that. We had an idea, and in part it came to us after talking to Smedia about his setup. We're going to try and move the tank. We're going to move the tank into the engine bay because then now it's behind the firewall in the engine, which is great, but then that also means that we have to wait for the tank to come in, which is probably another 2 weeks out. That we have to put it in here, and we really need to have the tank in place also in the engine bay before we can finish the intercooler piping. There's a lot of these pieces and changes that we're making that are now waiting on parts. Like one thing is related to the next, and so we've got to kind of wait. So the other thing, well, yeah, let me show you this. So for the very keen-eyed, so Carter, go ahead and look in there at the standalone there. For the very sharp-eyed viewers, you probably noticed, hey, you got the standalone there, but there's nothing plugged into it. That is correct, because the entire wiring harness is out of the car. If you watched our podcast with Damian Bradley, who's bringing over his 92 Legacy Turbo, we're in a similar state that both cars, neither one of them has any wiring in it. So we're kind of waiting to put the engine back in until Jeremy Agostino is done updating the wiring. And so we're kind of on a little bit of a hold there as well because we want to kind of run the new wiring through the firewall and then put the engine in rather than having to have the engine in the car and then try and run the new wiring around the car. Now, why are we redoing the wiring? A couple of reasons. The first is that with the new turbo that we're running, we're going to have to run a speed sensor because we're running a Garrett G-Series turbo. And with the elevation of Pikes Peak, we have to make sure that we don't overspeed the turbo too much because at high elevation, high boost, they're prone to having failures. So we got to keep a track of the turbine speed, so we have to wire that in. Also, we've had kind of a parasitic draw that we think we now know what it is that's been killing the battery. We can have the car sitting here with the kill switch off and everything like that, and the battery will just die. So that's been kind of a problem, especially with the car. Like sometimes it has to be jump-started up on the mountain to even make it back down during practice. It's been a real pain, so we're going to try and fix that. There's a lot of other things that we're trying to fix and add to the wiring harness, and so that's why the harness is out, and Jeremy's going through it, trying to kind of optimize some things and fix some things. So we're waiting on that. So as soon as the wiring is ready, then the engine can go in, then the wiring goes in, then the turbo kit goes on, then hopefully the dry sump tank is here, goes into the car. Now we're moving the tank, so it's way back there. We're moving it up here. That means all new plumbing. I don't have a good picture of it here for you, but with any luck, we'll have something at the end of the video here. We're moving the oil cooler. So the oil cooler used to be, over here in pulling through the fender well. We realized we need a bigger cooler. We need more air. So to keep the oil temps in stock or in check. So now we've got a much bigger core, and it is now moving in between the intercooler and the radiator. So we're basically also going to have to completely redo all of the plumbing for the dry sump and oiling system with the new tank and the new oil cooler. So again, we need the engine in the car so that the dry sump's on the bottom so that we can actually run all that plumbing. And again, back to the intercooler piping. Well, we really should have the plumbing done for the dry sump system before we do the intercooler piping, just to make sure that we're not interfering with anything. So yeah, so there's just so many things, so many little pieces of the puzzle that we are waiting on. Everything is changing. The engine is changing. Let me show you the engine at this point. I've teased it enough. The reason that the engine is not as a huge problem is because we have it here. We have our Turning Concepts long block ready to go. Once we can, bolt all the things onto it that we need to bolt onto it, it can go in the car. So we're not stuck waiting for the Turning Concepts block. For right now, I'm not going to dive into all the details about this. That'll probably be in the next video. But yes, Turning Concepts long block. We think there's a lot of reasons we picked this. We're excited to be working with those guys. Yeah, this is going to bring a lot to the table to make us a lot faster. And we'll get into that in the next episode. But yes, the long block is here. The first one. The other one is on the way. That's right. We're doing this twice. For all of the reasons that I mentioned last time, well, now this is all custom and bespoke. So if we have any issues, well, you're really gonna have to have a second one on hand, and that's the plan. So so at least the engine is here. Come on around, Carter, let's look at the turbo kit. So we're going with the full Roger Clark rotated turbo kit with the Garrett G-Series turbo. Phenomenal, it looks amazing. I cannot wait to put it on the car. And we did go for the full Motorsports heat shielding because with all the dry sump routing and plumbing and all that sort of thing, we've done our best and we did a decent job, but knowing that there is this probably even better option, more thorough option to keep all of the heat in the exhaust in the engine bay, we've opted to do that. So the turbo kit is here. It's all ready to go on the car. Carter, come on over here. We've even had the hot side of the turbo heat shielded, so that's ready to go. We have a battery box because in the process of doing all the different wiring, we're also relocating the battery behind the driver or thereabouts. It's going into the cabin because then having the battery out of the engine bay gives us a little bit more options for tank location and all that sort of thing. Again, like everything is basically changing on this car. It probably will still look the same, but there's just so many things that are changing. Here's another fun part. Again, for the very keen-eyed viewers, you may have noticed that there's no caliper on our front wheels, and that's correct. We actually realized we had a caliper that was sticking for some reason, so we've got the calipers sent off to get them rebuilt at Alcon. So that doesn't really depend on anything, and that should be back here soon. But yeah, we've got to go through the braking system, rebleed all the brakes. One of the ideas or one of the motivations in going through the wiring harnesses, we have not been able to get the wheel speed sensors to work, so we can't do the traction control that the Haltech has to offer. So the plan is to also fix that. So we'll get the brakes functioning, hopefully get the wheel speed sensors working so that the Haltech traction control will work for us as well. And that's a piece of the puzzle for the future as well. So last but not least, Aero. So last year we had to make a custom plywood splitter and it worked okay for us, but we're deciding to try and do something a little bit better, a little bit bigger, a little bit fancier this year for the splitter. So we're working with the guys at Veris to redesign a new front splitter. One of the things that has become clear is that we're going to have to redo the mounting because of the placement of the diffusers for the front splitter. And because we're here and why not, we're also looking at doing a new rear wing. That's probably going to be the most academic of all of this because it's much more straightforward to bolt on a new rear wing. But we've been using this APR GT500 wing basically since the first or second year of running the car. It's worked well for us, but if we're going to have a front splitter that makes more downforce, we need a rear wing that matches. And so Veris has some off-the-shelf options, but we're going to have a better mount, better location, and they're working with us to help optimize that. But so we're going to have to redo that, figure out that mounting solution, get all of this madness into the engine bay, and then figure out how to bolt a splitter up underneath that as well. Oh, transmission cooler. Totally forgot about the transmission cooler. We're also, as part of the wiring, we're going to try and wire in the transmission cooler. I think It's not as essential for Pikes Peak. That would be something we could do after Pikes Peak. So that's like down the line if we have time and everything falls into place. And again, we've got basically 109 days, 99 days. Well, let's say 109 days because that's slightly less stressful than 99 days at this point to get all of this stuff in, keep all the parts moving, and start getting this all together. And yeah, and it's just, you know, a couple of the guys here at the shop that are doing all this work, you know, in between, you know, trying to stay on top of day-to-day business. So that's where it is a lot, but that is what is going on. So that's what we've got going with the Pikes Peak car currently. Again, we're going to try and give you updates, you know, each week or so, the countdown and to document the progress of this thing going back together. So yeah, hopefully it all goes well. I think it will. Again, a lot of the key pieces of the puzzle are already here, and the couple that we don't have should be close at hand. So we're just about to start really putting stuff back in the car and starting to make progress. So next week should be good, and I promise I will go into more details about the turbo kit and the engine, why we picked them, and that'll probably be for the next episode. So make sure you like and subscribe to the channel to stay on top of all the updates, and thanks for your support, and thanks for cheering us on. I mean, you guys have been awesome about encouraging us and following the development of this car, and you guys get excited about it, and that helps us get excited and push through and put in all this extra work into the car to try and take it to another level this year. So thanks for your support as always. Until next time, stay tuned for Flatirons Tuning.